517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
Hey, this is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast. Thank you for checking it out. This week, I did have some technical issues in the live one, so it did start off a little funny where I wasn't there. I'm going to kind of piece a bit together from their responses here, kind of letting you know what the questions are beforehand and kind of letting their answers kind of fill in there. So I did have some insights that were muted there. Sorry about messing this up, but thanks a lot for everyone checking it out, and it does kind of get normal pretty quickly into it. So thanks a lot, guys. Let's get into it.
Hi guys, I'm Knight. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
How's it going, everybody? I'm honored to be here. Love these shows.
So it started back when the game started. Actually, Painless, who's CA1, he's the one that sort of got together with some of his mates. They used to play together in Starfighter Assault back in Battlefront 2 as a sort of team there, and then they decided to make a whole new squad for Squadrons. So they called it the Cavern Angels, and started from there. Really, we kind of randomly queued into I randomly queued into Painless with Ralph, because me and Ralph met before CA was even a thing, when we were both like level 40 back in October, and we decided to stick together because we both loved killing players, so we were both PKers, so we just ended up sticking together the whole time. Back then dogfighting was the sort of more up and coming thing rather than fleet battles, at least it seemed that way. So yeah, we randomly queued into Painless in a fleet battle, and Painless being Painless just adds everyone he thinks is relatively all right at playing. And then he said, "Look, do you guys want to join?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" Everyone knows what the solo queue is like, or the duo queue. So the more people, the merrier.
So I started out trying to play with anyone and everyone. Just like I think I started first group I ever joined was TRA because I saw an ad on like a Facebook group or something. And TFA, I remember the post. It was like a TFA posted, and TRA was like, "Whatever, you guys have like 800 players. Like TRA, we gotta build up the other side." And I was like, "Oh hell yeah!" So I joined TRA, and I started playing with them, and then that just kind of led to playing with all kinds of different discords and groups, and I would play with literally everyone I could.
Knight and Broba, thanks for giving us the rundown on Cavern Angels. I'm also curious too, what is your background to flight games before Star Wars Squadrons? Knights, have you played any flight games before it?
When I was really young, I used to play Flight Simulator 2004. That was my kind of first entrance into flight games, but I was never really that serious with it. What sort of brought me in since taking that long break is my job, actually, because I'm an airline pilot.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's a kind of different way of flying, but it's I don't pew things, for example, at work. But
you don't?
No, I know it's a bit boring, isn't it? But no, it's always something I've enjoyed doing. I was in the UK. They're called the Royal Air Force Cadets when I was younger, so I just brought up that kind of military background and military sort of interest in flying. But unfortunately, when I went to join the Royal Air Force, wanting to be a pilot, it was 2008, 2009 when we had that massive recession. So they didn't recruit anyone. So I had to spend a couple of years doing my flying training, and then got into that way.
That's awesome. And so do you also play on a flight stick then, I would assume, just like you do when you fly?
Funny enough, no.
No? You play controller?
I play controller.
That's awesome.
I do. Mainly because I wasn't sure how long this game was going to last, and it's the first flying game I've played in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So spending £200-300 in English money on a proper setup, I was wondering whether it was worth it. But I do regret not doing it, actually, because I want it now.
Well, there's still time. I mean, there's other games.
There's still time.
Broba, how about you? How did you come to Star Wars Squadrons? Were you a Star Wars fan? Have you played flight sim games before?
I really just came from definitely Star Wars fan to start. I was trying to play every Star Wars game I could. I've loved it since I was a kid. I also have enjoyed any vehicle game, like back in the day, like PS2 Gran Turismo, stuff like that, Rocket League now. So if there's a vehicle game that comes out with Star Wars in it, I mean, it's the perfect storm. So I was back when the first EA Battlefront came out with the Starfighter Assault mode on it. I was on that thing hours and hours and hours. Like I wish there had been some type of competitive scene there, because I really wanted to know like how I would measure up. But so I got, I put tons of hours into there, and then when the second one came out, the engine was even better. So I wish I had known about like clans and stuff like back then to try and join. But when Squadrons came out, it was like I remember that first trailer, like the first YouTube trailer of like an entire game devoted to the part of Battlefront that I wanted to play.
Yeah.
Like, I was hyped. Like none of my friends could match, so I had to like. They weren't as excited, so I'm glad I found some new people to play with.
I mean, I don't know if you guys felt the same way. I kind of had like a group of like 5 people or 6 people who I got the game with and played with, and then none of them stuck with it. So we were just kind of, I just was like, I guess I got to find some other people to play with now, because like I was into it. I liked it a lot. So I guess you guys kind of found something similar. At what point did Cavern Angels Gold kind of get together and kind of get more serious kind of there?
So it's an interesting story about Cavern Angels Gold, because it was never really intended to be a thing. What happened was I was involved with, in the first Cal Cup, Cavern Angels Squad 1 it was called back then, and that was our team when we entered. It was me, Painless, the Horror, if you know him, Ham, and Ralph, 5 of us together. And we found during the tournament that a few of us were kind of butting heads together, and the sort of synergy wasn't there. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to run my own team, and so has Painless. So we decided to split separate ways and create our own teams. So Painless created his red squad, and I picked my favorite color, which is gold, and I created my squad. And I sort of looked at the sort of, we have about 70 people-ish in CA at the moment. Not all of them now playing regularly, but at the time they were. And I kind of had a pick of who I thought would be my ideal squad. And I wasn't picking people just purely based on skill. I was picking people based on their ability to sort of learn, adapt, and sort of adjust to their mistakes, and can take that, without reacting like a little child or something like that, and without getting angry. So I knew if I had that recipe with my team, I could hopefully start to build these guys up to the point where they become, self-sufficient at improving themselves and going off in their own time and starting to practice dumbfires or practice this and that without me having to keep on top of it. And I'm really happy to say that has happened, and that is what has caused now our sort of improvement over the last few months, is that hard work. And I'm really proud to say that everyone in the team has stuck at it, and they've gone from 0 to hero, and I'm really happy to see that.
I mean, I really think it's so true though. Like that's what you see in any team. Like Splinter is working so hard to stay on the top. All these teams are that. You guys work so hard. Like it doesn't come easy, I think, to any team to be able to compete. And I think that's why you might see some teams who were kind of up there might like fall off if they don't work as hard. I mean, I definitely think Orange Squadron too. We were definitely at a certain point where we were a little bit up there more, but we definitely have just not put in the work to be able to stay there with a lot of these teams, and it just shows. I think definitely a couple tournaments we got like wide awakenings. We're like, oh, we're not up to par with a bunch of teams. I wonder too, in my tier list, I sometimes think too I'm a little bit behind sometimes in some teams, and I feel like every time like I feel like I nail it, but then when it comes to, I'm like, I was a little bit behind. I feel like one time I was a little bit behind with you guys too, and you were kind of coming up before I even realized it. And you got to give it a credit to that hard work. Now, the game was kind of leaning on the Empire a little more at one point. How did you guys kind of get through that time? Because you were still successful then as well.
It was mainly just sort of over practicing NR, really, as much as possible. We knew that NR was the weaker faction because of the balance updates and whatever, and we knew we had to find some way of counteracting that lack of DPS that the Republic has. And the answer really came from a lot of old tactics that we used to use back in the day when everyone was running thrust engine and everyone was doing torp runs.
Torps.
Yeah.
The answer has always been there in the Republic loadouts. It's just everyone moved on from it because they thought it was useless and everyone was just chaffing them. But then people realized when people stopped doing torp runs, they stopped staying there chaffing things, and now the meta is sort of shifting back towards torps being a thing again. So yeah, it was
that was like our it's kind of our strat against you guys. We're just trying to get everyone torp running as quick as we could. But one thing about you guys' defense, it's so disciplined and so fast. Like, it seems to the point that you guys are calling it to kind of get back, and you have your packs ready to dumbfire on the flip. You always have a frigate to off phase and your burning raider, and it's just like seems like clockwork. Did you guys practice that? Is that? Just tell me about your defense strategy there a little bit.
100%. Yeah, our strategy is based on not progressing as much as possible in the initial part of it and trying to get all the way to the ISD straight away. It's actually also about cutting the time that your enemy has to spend on their attack phase. So it's a sort of culmination of a lot of little things that add up to a big effect, if you know what I mean. So leaving that cruiser out of phase, and if you have time, getting the second one out of phase, and killing people at the right time, not just going after whoever's near you, but killing people on phase flips. That makes such a difference and is so backbreaking for the other team. I didn't realize when I first created Gold Squad that these little things would make such a difference, and I think that's the difference between, as you were saying earlier before we start, sort of the top 16 and then the top 8 or the top 4. It's realizing what all those little things are and putting it together. I don't know, Brobo, if you've got anything to add, because you're on the AI farmer side of things, aren't you? So.
Yeah, it's I want to add there's there's the details of you need to have multiple people ready and able loadout wise to be able to take down the raider shields as fast as possible, because if you just have one guy with an ion torp, maybe he died, unfortunately, maybe he he's tied up dodging Narcissist, or maybe he's tied up elsewhere, or maybe the raider doesn't spawn on his side of the map. You need to have multiple options with your loadouts, so that you can have somebody ready to take the shields down on the raider, and number one, get that morale fast, and number two, get stop the damage. But yeah, there's also a really important communication factor with either me and Ice, or me and Red, or Ice and Red, or whoever's in the squad at that point, about I'll usually call out hey Red, what do you want? And if he's near the raider, he'll start burning raider, and if he's near, he's I got a pack ready, then I'll either look for a different pack or I'll get ready to do a raider burn. So I think planning ahead for the loadouts and having comms be really efficient and open and quick is what helps with those defenses.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. If you get if you get one and even two, if you get two frigates ready to out of phase, and then you get one or two packs quick, and then you get that raider, it's over. They had no time to do anything.
I mean, and I haven't played you guys a ton, but I've played you guys enough that I've seen these. We knew it. We knew that's what's coming. Our goal against you was to not let you get that frigate off phaseable, and you still did. We're oh god. You know what was crazy too? What I thought anyways, that we were we picked Nadiri to mitigate your farm, but you guys went triple. You had Empire. You went triple bomber farming. You had 3 guys with 10 farm. We're what? You just threw a curveball at us. How much do you plan your opponent and map? How much was that a factor for you guys?
It's a huge factor. Obviously, in day 2 of the tournaments, you can pick ban maps and factions and etc. And that is half of the battle. It really is, because if you end up on your least favorite map, you're going to tank it most of the time, because everyone usually practices a certain set of maps, or certain and they have the 1 or 2 that they absolutely hate and they just can't seem to figure out, and if you can sort of ban those from the very beginning, then that really helps. In terms of practicing for teams, I think what really progressed us up to being in that sort of top 4 plus category was adjusting our strategy for those other top teams and scrimming them, and just understanding how they play. There's a very, very different tactic between, say, the Randalorians and, say, Splinter. Splinter is more of a PvE race. Randalorians they've got that PvP down, but they're also massive PvP. So you've got to find ways of dealing with that. And that was our kind of aim, and so we tried to scrim them as often as possible, as often as they'd let us, because obviously they don't want to let too much go in terms of their strategies. So we took advantage of every opportunity we can, and then we saw one day Arios posted in the Discord, and he said, Cheese is looking for scrims, and I was like, whoa, what an opportunity, because these guys are almost never around. Like, you can never really organize that stuff with them. And I think it's because they took on, Shazam and their new sort of tactics that they wanted to try them out. So we thought, bang, this is a great opportunity to learn from them. And if we do end up going against them, this is invaluable. And that is exactly what happened in the tournament. We went against them.
Wow. So. And we're going to get into that one too. We're going to talk about, I think, the whole day too. We'll talk about each matchup. The thing that I just want to talk about, Twin Suns, that honestly, I feel like it was such a success. Honestly, it was so much more. I mean, I love the Cal Cup series too, but with X Reach, he was really able to catapult it to the next level. Like, it's incredible. Like, to see now it's got 30,000 views the day two. The day one has 40,000 views. Like, these are, like, I mean, bro, you're coming from Rocket League. Like, those are, legit numbers. Like, these are like real esport numbers. So I wonder if it's going to help the future of the game. I would love it to. So this tournament, I feel like was such a success.
It was great to see that he was not only broadcasting the high-level matches, but on day one he chose to show a lot of this sort of lower-level stuff as well. So people that are just joining the game could get a sort of appreciation of, yes, we can reach this level, because this is the sort of mid-level between, low-level and high-level. If people see that they don't have a huge amount to improve on to get to that stage, they'll want to work at it. And that was really good to see. And then he stuck in those sort of tutorials in between matches too. I was so happy to see that.
Yeah.
Those were great.
And I think like getting a latch hold on those new players is what will keep this game alive. Because check out the nerdy Northerners who are in your chat actually at the moment. These guys were brand new to the game.
Oh, nice.
Not too long ago, and they entered the Twin Suns tournament knowing potentially that they could get 6-0'd or whatever, but they worked at it, and they took advice from myself and Ice Cleric and Zasta and all these kind of different players,
right?
And they've done such a good job. They ended up winning most of their games.
I heard about this. Yeah, we were watching them play like along the road there. That's awesome to see that, like, new teams coming up. There was actually a fair amount of new teams. Players too who usually are just doing dogfighting. They had formed some teams to be in the fleet battles. Like, shout out to like Gil the Vlogsmith, who does a lot of Twitch streaming. He had a team in there. I think that's pretty cool to see the community coming together there, and other things too, like the Cadet Cup. I know that's another one coming up there. There's different things for mid-level players too, and new players to like have kind of like get inside the competitive. So I think that's kind of cool to see. I think there is a future for Squadrons there. It's kind of on everyone who plays it to kind of, like you guys are doing with the nerdy Northerners, kind of like, taking them under your wing, helping them. Like, I think like teams new to that. I try to direct new players to the different Discords as well. I think that's kind of the key moving forward.
Absolutely.
So the second round, after you made it through Orange somehow, you made it on to the Randalorians, which I didn't get to see the series. That one wasn't cast. So why don't you guys kind of tell me about that one? What was your approach going towards the Randos? Like you had said, it was a little bit, you knew they had more PvP rather.
So they actually casted the second two games, but not the first one that we lost. So I'm kind of glad they didn't cast that one. But the Randalorians, as you say, massive heavy PvP team. Avenger and Jester, a deadly combo, going around and just annihilating people left, right, and center. Even the most evasive of us, when they're both on you, you're just gonna die. You just have to accept that.
Yeah.
So we've tried before. We've scrimmed them before. We've got experience against that, and we saw that putting pressure on Avenger and Jester didn't really work. It kind of delayed that sort of deaths on our side, on our defense, but it didn't really give us any progress as such. So we took a sort of second approach, me and Ralph in particular, as our sort of PvP combo. we saw that we put pressure on their bombers would just get repaired all the time, and their bombers had a really good and really high reliance on that support to get repaired in the heat of the moment, instead of running away. So the key to unlocking, getting that 10 morale every kill was actually not starting with the bombers, but starting with the support. And don't get me wrong, Submo is a very, very good invasive pilot. But again, if you've got 2 PvPers on you, there's not a huge amount you can do, especially if they've got ion missiles and everything like that. So we changed our tactic a bit to focus Submo, and then we just chipped away at their bombers, just like they were chipping away at ours. But I think in those couple of games we managed to do it a bit faster than them. And that was the main strategy behind it. Our sort of attack phase, we didn't really change, because it's not like, because their game is very different to Splinter. We've scrimmed them in the past, and we know that it's very rare that they one phase our ISD or our MC75. So we know that we can take a defense, whereas Splinter, they just go straight through you, and if you let them, they will just completely one phase you, and then if they don't, they'll just add a phase it anyway. So
60, 70 health, like it's still never
safe
if you get that flip.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, but yeah, they've done it, did it to us too. Yeah, they walked to us too. It was tough, and it's incredible to see that that you had the mindset going in. You had the experience to be able to make that change and kind of mitigate their PvP, because you basically thought you could win the PvE race once you did that kind of. Yeah, that's awesome. And then rely on your defense. I feel like, more and more too, when I'm looking back, I'm just like, the defense is just not there. Whereas I feel like in a lot of ways, looking back at Orange, our team, the defense isn't there in a lot of ways. And I feel like that's just kind of been a progression of the game at this point. Defense is winning games a lot more. Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like the meta is to off phase the frigates to make sure you get the morale bump as much as you can there, get the cruisers quickly, fast AI farm. It seems like defense win games. What do you think, Broba?
I think there's definitely something in that. What you want is the most amount of time on offense. If you can have 2 phases where you get a full, and this is sometimes a factor on the joust too. If you win the joust, but you only have a hair over the middle line, that might not actually work in your favor, because you get set up and you try and do some bombing runs, and but then if they flip, you are on your back foot and you are not ready for their first offense. So it's sometimes if you can get 2 good full offensive phases and but still be prepared for that defensive flip, and then get their offense to be a fraction of the time that your offense was, even if they're technically beating you DPS wise, and sometimes faction has a bearing on that, like Empire on Yavin or Nadiri. There's just a mathematical advantage, because Empire can do more damage per second than New Republic can. So as farmers and as defenders, you need to try and have that or decimate that as much as you can, because if you can give your team 2 full length offensive phases and keep them to maybe 1 1/4, 1 1/2, then that will make a huge difference. Even if they're out damaging you, and even if they're more efficient than you, they just don't have enough time to do what you can do on yours.
Yeah, I think so. Especially because, we're saying the game is all about leaving that one frigate off. I mean, now even too, when I'm got the random people in our solo queue, I'm just screaming through, putting the heads down, leave Charlie, just screaming at people to leave it now. And they don't get. They're like, no, it's 7. I'm gonna shoot it. And no, don't. It's definitely the new meta, but it's hard to kind of explain to people to do it. I definitely like to see you guys kind of explain it too. Is there another? Maybe I'm wrong. I heard someone kind of mention this about. There's a period when it flips to where the AI is still worth 3 from the opening. Is that true? Do you guys know about this? Is it something that I just heard about?
I think what you may be talking about is when the phase flips at that instant point, and it's saying fall back, prepare for defense, or prepare for attack. That is when everything counts as if it was the next phase. Basically.
So you can actually get. Point. So from that point, so there's a period there where you can still get you can kind of milk the morale in those weird kind of bumps. Actually, did you guys use that at all?
Not intentionally, I must say. Not
okay.
from my side.
Because that would be an advance. Sorry, go ahead, Broba.
Yeah. No, no. I was just saying, like, it was. That would kind of be like you basically have to be almost farming like while you're still on offense, which is um, not that's not really going to pay off unless you know for a fact that it's going to flip right at that exact second.
Yeah.
So
I guess it would be in those ones when it's a hair and you're just waiting to like, and then once it flips, then you do it to just give a little extra morale and boost it a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of a. So what was your thinking then going in, preparing for this tournament with New Republic versus Empire? Did you guys have a favorite faction? Did it come down to opponent? And what were you thinking for that?
Our best faction has always been Empire, as it is with most teams, and it's been that way for a while because that was the way to win. Because you saw it before this current balance patch how sort of unbalanced the Empire was in terms of in favor of winning. So we practiced the hell out of that. We practiced the hell out of Empire and everything. And actually, running up to this tournament, it sort of completely flipped on us without us sort of making any conscious effort. We went into queuing in ranked in our 5-stack, and we got Republic game after Republic game after Republic game. And you know how it is sometimes. You just get constant faction stick.
Yeah.
And it happened to us for an entire day, and we managed to get a huge amount of practice in with that. And we thought, maybe we actually need to get good at this. Because we were losing against people that we thought we never would. So we needed to get that practice in. So we started training for Republic only stuff.
So when you were approaching a team like Randalorians, did you have a preference on which faction you would be for, knowing you needed to, take out the support?
Not really, because at the end of the day, we knew it wasn't going to be our choice, because most of the time during the qualification day, day one, we knew that Rando's Cheese and Splinter will probably get the highest seed. So they're going to be able to choose the faction at the very beginning. So, and it may work the other way. It may have worked out that we got the higher seed, but you can't really control that. So all you can do is practice both, and just try and do your best at both. And we know we can beat most teams on Empire, but at one point we were very, very unsure about how we could take games away from people when we were forced to be NR on the first game.
Because then you would have to for the run back as NR. What do you mean by that for the first game?
So when the higher seed chooses the faction, they usually choose Empire. If it ended up in that situation, I was thinking to myself, look, how can we actually power through this and win as NR? Because we have to. Yeah. Because most of the time it's best of 3, right? And you only get the chance at your second faction once, which is mostly Empire for us if we were the lower seed. We knew we'd have to win 2 New Republic games or win the first Republic game to actually get that 2-0 to progress. And I think that is what stopped us initially going from top 4 to contender for winner, because we would end up doing well in day 1 and then going up against Rando, Splinter, Cheese, IG without the choice of the first faction, and then we just lose because we weren't practiced enough in NR. So yeah, we definitely focused that for sure.
Does map then? How big of a factor is map for that faction? If you've got the choice, then you don't have the choice of faction. At least you have some choice in map. What would you go with for New Republic?
Probably.
So we had a lot of intense discussion about this. At one point, I don't remember if we are still sticking with this exact logic, but there was one where we just came at it with math, and it's like, okay, well, the Empire has a higher DPS. Our best chance of countering that is with short defenses. The shortest defenses come on maps with the easiest farm. Therefore, you want Yavin. You want Esselis. You want the maps where you can easily, as a Y-wing, find packs of AI as fast as possible and get that AI moving to counter the higher DPS of Empire. Just don't give them as much of a chance to use it. So for a while there, that was a little bit that was kind of where we went. Like if we knew that we were going to have Rebel first, we would try and get Yavin. But that also kind of went a little bit twisted a little bit sideways with how the top 4 teams were playing at the end too. So like if we knew that like we know A1 loves Galatan, then maybe we try not to give him Galatan. Or if we knew like someone uses this particular type of type of attack, then don't give them Fostar because they can use that and then get out, or like kind of stuff like that. It got really really hairy, and sometimes
doing the mental gymnastics, trying to be like, okay, well, if they do this, then we'll do this. But what if they do that, then we'll go this way? Yeah, you kind of gotta stay. I mean, at this level,
and sometimes like I'm just on the Imperial side of our squad, and so sometimes when they were talking about New Republic maps, I was like, I'm out, dude. I can't even worry about.
Yeah, I did notice that you went with kind of a slightly different lineup. I guess strategically, you guys went a different way depending on faction there too. What was the thinking there?
I think Knight is just sorry. I think Knight is just generous enough that like I'm way more comfortable in TIE Bomber than I am in a Y-wing, and Red, and I'm much less evasive than both Red and Ice in a Y-wing as well. And so you want, especially at those high levels, you want someone who can do the dip, dive, duck, and dodge. That I'm a little bit. I think I'm learning, but I'm still not. There.
Well, now I'm curious. How do you fly your TIE Bomber? Do you shunt charge your TIE Bomber, and then what's your fly style with it?
Yeah, definitely. I almost basically the power is in other than the joust and the dumbfires. There's a specific thing for that, but there's other than that, power is in weapons all the time, and then you just shunt to get the boost that you need, and then that'll get you in and out. And get you, or like on the bombing runs, it'll get you out to get the resupplies, or it can power and engines is a little bit little bit helpful on the exact bombing run, like for the shield gens on the M75, just to get you a little like past the shields before the tractor beam gets you. But
right. Do you
that's my person too.
What's your primary weapon and engine for your shunt charging?
Slam versus Jet is an interesting situation. I like Slam. Ice Cleric is on our team is a huge advocate of Slam engine, and I've been using Jet forever. And there were other problems with my controls too that we figured out one day. It was very embarrassing for me, but eventually I just did a test. I was like, you know what? I'll do a few games with Jet engine and a few games with Slam engine. And on the games with Slam engine, I had like 2 less deaths, so I just ended up going with that. And it's great because if you have the power going where it's supposed to be, you just have 8 or 9 drifts that you can do, boosts and drifts that you can do before you're running low. So
I love that style. I like it with a TIE fighter a little easier. I feel like that's like training wheels version. The bomber's just like a little bit slower and a little tougher, so I haven't quite figured it out on that level. But it's definitely really fun to fly that ship that way, and you can clearly see like people having success with it. But then I guess it doesn't translate to the Y-wing, kind of like you're saying, which is like a different thing that I'm still trying to figure out that Y-wing. People are loving it now though, for sure. With the
boost helped. It definitely made it more relevant, and you can take it in more safely. And like I'm still new to. I'm also on an Xbox controller, and I was way behind on changing the power or advanced power. So I'm still figuring it out, and it's definitely improving. Over time, but. Yeah, it's still ways to go.
I'm curious with this because I'm not on an advanced power management. I'm on a Series 2 controller. I'm on console. Are you on PC? Do you use advanced power management on PC or console?
Yeah, we're both on PC.
Oh, okay.
So, I think someone in your chat asked this question actually, and wanted to know about how we make that work on controller, because the problem with controller in Squadrons is that you can't assign a button for some reason to maximize power when you're using advanced power management, and that means that every time if you assign your power management to the D-pad, you've got to make like 4 button presses before you can actually get the max power, and it's really inefficient. So both of us use a program called Anti-Micro, and that allows you to assign a D-pad button to a keyboard button. So all we do is we sort of bypass that sort of thing that they've left out of Squadrons for controller players, which is allowing you to maximize power. We just assign maximize power to 1, 2, 3 on your keyboard, and then the program, it goes through Anti-Micro, and that allows you to press one button on your controller for each one of those maximized powers. So, it's not a macro, it's not cheating, it's nothing like that. It's just leveling the playing field so that with your controller setting, you can do exactly what the keyboard players can. You can do what the HOTAS players can. So yeah, that's the way we do it.
That's I just got my PC set up. As you can see, that's why I don't have any technical difficulties in the podcast this week. And I'm definitely going to ask you about that because I need to set up for once I move over to PC with Squadrons. Definitely want to get that maximized power because, everything from like shield skipping to just better power management where you pick up that extra little bit is just such an advantage on having that. So I definitely want to try that. I want to try it out the other way. See how the other half lives for a while there. So you guys were, able to make it through Randalorians in the 3-game series. Where was the third game then in that one? Which faction and which map was it on actually?
Do you remember, Broba, about that one?
It was definitely Rebels, right?
Yeah, we won as NR, yeah.
Right. I want to
S02E03,
say.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I was about to say. I want to say S02E03.
Mm-hmm. Which is another map. One of the maps that you guys often would try to get out there. S02E03 and Yavin, like you said.
And I think it was one of those things where it was like I remember sitting because I was watching that game obviously and I remember like throwing my chair back, be like, "We won the joust!" Like, and it just sometimes the joust is often like one of those like one of the match killers. So like if you're both doing evenly, even damage and doing your stuff well, it goes down to who won the joust.
And that came through it. So then you're moving on, to Cheese. Like you said, you had scrimmed them a little bit, so you kind of had an idea. Maybe you were one of the few teams who kind of knew what it was like with Shazam out there. How did you guys prepare for them?
So Cheese were coming in with a really unique strategy, which no other team in the tournament that I know of was running.
No.
And that is a strategy without support, except in the joust. So in the joust, they ran a support to squadron mask them and to tack shield them, which was interesting. We hadn't seen that for a while since the squadron mask was nerfed. Everyone's been running resupplying beacons now.
Plus the shields, that's like a stock loadout.
yeah. It's basically to sort of tank their bombers up to the point where it's very difficult to kill them, and then to hide them so they can definitely get those packs. And it worked. It worked against us. In the 5 games that we played against Cheese, we lost 4 of the 5 jousts against them. So that's obviously worked out for them. However, the issue, I think, if they were playing against another team, I can't really speculate too much, but if they were to play against a team like Randos with really, really excellent PK, it would probably backfire because they've then... Well, what the support does is he sort of flies in, does his business, does his tack shield, does his mask at the right time, and then goes out, and he's out for the entire phase.
Right, because if you've got to do that switch, is going to take time to make happen.
Yeah, and then it's a 4v5, at that stage. So we found it very strange that they were doing that. And so by the time we got to the 5th game with Cheese, we kind of realised what we needed to do to kind of counter it. And the answer wasn't really going after their bombers, funnily enough, it was going after their defenders. Because they were running 3 of them. Arios, Shazam, and who's the third one? It's not D-Strick, it's the other one, I can't remember. But
not Cheese.
Yeah, essentially.
Oh, shoot. Whoever the 5th person is, sorry, we can't remember right now.
Yeah. And what those 3 were doing, essentially, were just piling onto our bombers and putting in that PvP pressure straight away. And you would see Arios and Shazam sort of team up against one, and then the other one would go against our other bomber. And so we were losing just because our bombers were getting killed, and then they would get all their packs. And yeah, it was a very difficult thing to come back from. But we noticed that what they would do every time with both defenders on one bomber is they would sort of... Because Arios needs to be really close, right, to use his Plasburst. He needs to be within sort of 300 meters to make it really, really effective. And what him and Shazam do is, at least in our games, that's what they did. That they came in and parked behind one of our bombers and just absolutely annihilated them from behind. So what we did was we told Ham, our support player, to run ion lasers, and we told Ralph, who is one of our main PKers, to team up with Ham whilst I put pressure on their bombers, and that double team there, strip their shields whilst they were sitting there, and Ralph would annihilate them with his burst cannons. And he took out both of them in that final phase, in that final game, and that's why we won that joust. So it was, yeah, it's one of those things where we wouldn't do it against a normal team, but you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt to stay in that top 4. So we knew we had to bring it all out in that game, and just try and think of a big brain way to counter these guys. 'Cause there's not much you can do against 3 defenders, you know. If they try and PK you the whole game, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, I'm trying to look back. You won 2 New Republic games against them too. Those last 2 games were both New Republic, so that's kind of impressive too. I mean, I'm trying to think. Overall in the tournament, do you think you won evenly with both factions? I feel like there was much more balance in it. It seemed just looking at it.
Yeah, I think so. I think we won. Isn't that right, bro? I think we won. We didn't win a sort of spate of Empire games and then almost no Republic. It was a very good balance there.
No, it felt this. That's what I think illustrates the fact that this last balancing update was, successful. Or maybe not the last one, maybe the one before, because it balanced out X-wing and Y-wing a little bit, and I think if you look across like the whole tournament wide in the last Cal Cup, it was very Empire heavy on the wins, and it was almost like 90% in the top 16 bracket. It was like Empire win, then Empire win on the other side, then Empire win on the other side, and whoever had the higher seed and got to pick Empire for more games would move on. And in this tournament, I think it was much less faction dependent.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. I mean, everyone wanted the A-wing to get a little help. They wanted a little bit of a nerf to the bomber, but at least they didn't ruin the game by doing those things or something. Throw it out. They kept it in a safe place, I think. Long term, I think it's in a good place anyway. If this is where it is, at least it's balanced until someone figures something dumb out, I guess. So yeah, that one you were able to, you had another Nadiri win there too. You didn't play Nadiri against Cheese the way that you played Nadiri against us. You didn't go with 3 Y-wings that way. How did you approach that Nadiri against them differently, if you remember?
So I believe we were Empire, weren't we, on Nadiri? Is that right?
No, Cheese was Empire actually on that one.
Cheese was Empire.
Are you sure?
Well,
because I'm pretty sure I remember playing Cheese on.
Hold on, we'll double check it right now. Apparently, I have a timestamp for it. Going to it on Nadiri. Cheese is. Yeah, you're right. You were right. You guys were right. You were Empire on Nadiri. Correct.
So, remind me, can you see there what our configuration was in terms of
2 defenders, 2 bombers? That's right. Because actually, yeah, that was my point. Because you went 3 bombers with us, and you only had the 2 bombers, 2 defenders. Whereas you went 3 bombers, 1 TIE fighter support against us, and you had 2 defenders, 2 bombers, 1 support against Cheese and Nadiri.
Yeah. So Nadiri is a bit of a funny one, and it really depends on who you're playing, right? So we know for a fact that Cheese don't run a lot of ICT. It really comes down to that for our sort of initial strategy. We have 2 kind of different strategies depending on what we think the other team will do. So the one where we think loads of ICT is going to come out, we'll run a TIE fighter and 3 bombers, for example. But if we think that there's going to be minimal to none, we'll run 2 defenders, 2 bombers, because that's our kind of most practiced, most effective loadout. Like for me, for example, as a player killer, I feel the most confident in the defender because it's so much more maneuverable, and so, in my opinion, so much more survivable without support than a TIE fighter is, because the TIE fighter only has so much hull before you need, if they chip away at you, you need to then run away and resupply or get resupplied. Whereas the defender, they just chip down at your shields and you run away and recharge them and come straight back.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, that TIE fighter is a low-key amazing ship. I mean, I love it, but I know what you're saying. It doesn't have the damage output, so it needs to be resupplied constantly too. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Funny enough, I love the TIE fighter, don't get me wrong. I think it's a really understated ship, and I think more teams should start to use it for 2 reasons. So the burst cannons are hilariously powerful on the TIE fighter. You know, if you ion disable someone and you're on target, they're going to die. You know, even if they get out in 2 seconds, you're going to kill them with overcharged TIE fighter burst cannons. And 2, you can carry an ion missile. Ion torpedo.
That's right, yeah.
So that just lets you get in not only your own team's damage, but passive damage a lot earlier. So carrying, say, a torpedo instead of a concussion missile is actually worth it, because you'll often do more passive damage to the frigate than you would with the 6 concussions in the time that, you know, it takes for your team to get in behind you and actually start doing damage, you know. So yeah, there's a bit of kind of math involved there, and I'm sure Fenkar's done loads of spreadsheets on how it all works and everything, which is why they were running it too. You know, Scout runs in a TIE fighter sometimes.
Yeah, I really like flying the TIE fighter with like either piercing an ion torp or ion missile and an ion torp or whatever. There's a lot of different combinations you can do. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of plays for that ship. It's just that the bomber's so strong. You see a ton of it there.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, the other thing that was interesting too, that you had that rough out of phase from Shazam, where he was just kind of, it was on an SLS, and he was just kind of using those back rocks to just kind of protect himself. I feel like that was kind of eye opening for a lot of people on how to do like an out of phase on SLS. What did you guys think of that when it was happening?
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't know about it until Ice Cleric started screaming, because he was the one back in a Y-wing, and he was like, "Shazam's here, Shazam's here." He's still out of phasing, and you know, there's nothing you can do. You know, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna commit your entire team to stop one guy, you know, trying to out of phase your MC, or are you just gonna try and progress as much as possible? There's a balancing act there, right? So Ice Cleric stayed behind because he had ICT and he was trying to do that, but. Again, Shazam doing Shazam things, he did really well.
What are you going to do? Yeah, exactly.
I spoke to Arios about this, and he was saying that they didn't even know that Shazam was doing it. So, again, Shazam doing Shazam things. He went on his own and he won it for them. So, you know, this is really good.
Oh, man. So, yeah, you got through that one. That was a crazy one. I feel like, plus... You were down. You had to do the 2-game comeback as well. You had to win the 2 games in a row. That was huge, that one. So you're moving on. What was your approach now? You said you had done some scrimming against Splinter, but what were you thinking going into now the finals?
We were thinking this is going to be bloody hard, right? Because we haven't had the best success with Splinter, you know, since we started scrimming them from the very beginning. We know what their strategy is. We just never really figured out how to counter it properly. So we knew that it is going to be, you know, we've got to fly at our absolute best to get any chance of being close to winning this, and I think everyone on the team knew that. So what we tried to do was just keep everything crisp, keep everything clean, make sure no one's wasting time. So we practiced those in custom games. We practiced you know, flipping phases and getting, you know, getting in and getting out and preparing for defense and all that kind of stuff. So at least we would have that kind of locked down. And we went into the match with really not much clue of how we would counter them, and we sort of learned as we went along. Luckily, we won the first game because our Empire game is quite strong, and then we lost our second Empire game, funnily enough, because they really what map was it? Was it I can't remember now.
You lost, yeah. So the first game was Galatan. I have you guys as Empire winning, and then the second game was Xavian, which I have Splinter winning as New Republic.
Yeah. So Xavian has Splinter has already put this in public knowledge, but Xavian has a slight disadvantage for Empire throughout the entire game versus New Republic, because 2 of the AI, for some unknown reason, they go and crash into something before they even get very far in the map. So Empire has, you know, that little bit of loss of advantage over Republic. So that's why Splinter has kind of practiced Xavian to hell and back, and really kind of perfected their strategy on it. And it's why they're banning Xavian out of SCL.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they are. So they don't want teams. They don't want it unbalanced. They don't want to put teams on the back foot from the very beginning.
That's pretty fair. That's a good reason then. I mean, the thing that I don't like about it is that it's so thin that when you're like shunt charging a lot, if you're having any sort of like lag issues and you need to do like extra boost kind of to like mitigate that sort of lag issue, it's just so thin. You don't have the room to kind of move across it because of that. I just hate that. So it really frustrates me. I feel like I'm always just on the limits of it and coming back constantly, and it really drives me crazy.
You are preaching to the choir here because
Yep.
I've just moved into a new place, and I don't currently have fiber internet installed here. I don't have any kind of internet installed here. So what they gave me, and I just laughed at them when they gave me when I moved in. They just gave me, it's called a BuzzBox, and it's just it's a mobile network router that allows you to play on 4G, and I've been playing on that for the last month and a half, 2 months. So shunt charging and shunting and flying any of those kind of ships has been a no-go. Absolutely no, because I tried flying a TIE bomber, and I end up flying a TIE fighter like an X-wing, where I run jet, and I typically do a few micro boosts around, and I'll recharge my engines. That's the only way I can play it right now until my internet gets installed. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of easier to PvP that way though, which I mean you kind of do too when you're in the TIE fighter a little bit as well.
Yeah, true.
With the burst, finishing them off.
Yeah, burst cannon is actually made a bit harder by having a higher ping, because you need to be pretty much pinpoint accurate
You're
to
right,
get 3
yeah.
shots on. Otherwise, it is very difficult. Whereas with a sort of a standard laser, you get a sort of beam of lasers, and you can kind of adjust it, and the game will kind of say, oh yeah, you're hitting them now eventually, and it'll just put a stream of damage on them. The one disadvantage I found coming up to now in the last 1.5 to 2 months is that when someone's behind me and someone's shooting me, I don't get told that I'm being shot until I've lost almost half my health.
Yeah, it's a little late.
I'm like, oh, and then I gotta go and fly off.
Oh, maybe that's what I'll blame when someone shreds through me. It's my connection. That's why they shredded me. Yeah. Okay. So then you had Sasubo, which is that's another one that comes up a lot in competitive play. What do you guys think about Sasubo? Do you have a preference for a faction there?
I do.
Yeah, so go on, brother. Yeah, tell them what you think.
I love Sasubo because on the joust. So one of the things I did prepping for this tournament was try and get as consistent as I could on dumbfires. Every map, both factions, and there's some that are easier than others. There's some that are more consistent than others. Sasubo is one where when I'm on Empire, I can get a dumbfire to hit 4 or 5 of the top pack every time, and then I'm right, and the second pack is right below it. So as long as we don't allow an insta flip in the first 10 seconds of the engagement, I'm gonna have 9 to 10 AI that are completely dead. So I always feel really, really good about Imperial jousts on Sasubo, whereas the dumbfires on the Rebel side are a little bit less. They're a little bit more hindered. There's stuff in between. You have to wait for them to come around, or it's not as easy. And so
that does happen on some maps like Foster, Xavian too, where the AI will also go kind of around those rocks. That must make some of those dumbfires a lot tougher depending on the time, I guess, that you send it. The window to send it is a lot tighter.
I hate Sasubo when we're NR because as a flex guy, I spend a lot of the time on the attack doing damage, and a lot of the time on the defense doing PvP. And PvP is fine, you just dodge around the obstacles and whatever. But one of the Imperial cruisers goes and parks itself in that sort of circular, on the right hand side, that circular sort of structure. And me trying to do my usual, somersault flip around there, I always end up crashing into it. So that's why I've hated that map for a while.
Yeah, some people hate that one, or it ruins the lock on too for people. That one definitely can drive people a little bit crazy. I mean, so you guys were up 2-1 too on Splinters. How are you feeling going into Game 4?
We were feeling good because we knew we had 2 chances to beat them, and the more chances you have, the more chances, how many times can you fuck up before you win? This is the kind of the way of thinking about it, right? So we were feeling good, and we put kind of our all into that game, and it worked. The Sasubo, luckily we got a lot of weak points in the right place, and we got the opportunity to add a phase, which we're pretty out of practice with, and it's something we need to improve. But when it's down to sort of 14, 13 health, which I think it was, almost anyone can do that. It's all about just how fast you do it. So one thing that we're going to try and improve on now is doing that quicker, because we saw on the stream that Splinter got RMC from 100 to 2 in the same time that we got their Star Destroyer out of phase from 14 to 0. So that needs to be quicker, and that as a team we need to improve on.
Yeah, it's funny, like at that highest level, it's like every second counts. Like, you know what I mean? Avoiding those switches, staying out there, getting the AI, just all that stuff. It's just such a, you know, in any competitive game, it kind of comes down to those slight decisions, which is crazy to see. I like that so much better than when it just seemed like the Empire had so much. Like, you could make so many mistakes on Empire at a certain point, and like New Republic, you have to play this perfect game. It's like now both sides, you have to play almost a flawless game to, you know, beat teams like Cavern Angel Gold at the highest level.
I think that was the biggest, strongest heart attack I ever had, trying to like watching Knight slowly out of phase, you know, as fast as he could from behind the Star Destroyer as our MC-75 is just going bloop, 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 like all the way down around that circle. Gut wrenching.
And then kind of Splinter came back on the S list. They had New Republic, and I don't know, walk me through that one. What about that game?
We both teams played an amazing game that time, and I think the outcome of that game pretty much came down to us losing the joust. So we both did exactly what we needed to do at the right times and got the right goals, and you know, and got through all the gates and all that kind of stuff. So I think it all came down to another weakness of ours, which is winning that first phase. And there are so many different ways and so many, you know, sort of in-moment decisions that you can make to change the outcome of that. When do you burn the radio? When do you kill a player? When do you get some AI and all this kind of stuff? It's so difficult to find that balance, and we're not quite there yet. We need to go away and have some discussions about that before we go into more tournament playing, because against all of these teams, we pretty much lost the joust, I would say 75% of the time. And luckily, in a lot of those games, we were able to bring it back, but in some we're not. So I don't like those odds. I don't like, you know, only a 25% chance of winning. We need to bring that up. Sure.
Well, I mean, I think it speaks to, again, like I've talked about it, your defense is crazy how quickly you guys were getting those flips. So I think you were able to at least kind of find the balance there. If you weren't winning those openings, you were at least kind of mitigating it a lot of times with those quick defenses. It's going to be cool to see in SEL. I mean, they keep track, I believe, of the openings too, so you'll kind of see how you guys are doing as it kind of moves along there. Game 5, Yavin. Splinter had Empire too, which I feel like, you know, I think Yavin is better for Empire. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is. It's better for Empire because the thing is, we used to think, as Broba said earlier, we used to think that Yavin was great for Republic because you could counter their fast DPS with a fast farm on defense, and get those phases in really quick. But the reality of the situation is that Empire can do exactly the same back to you. Mm-hmm. So Empire actually has the advantage of the fast farm and the higher DPS. So we were a bit nervous going into that game for sure. Mm-hmm. And we knew that it was likely if we lost the joust, we'd lose the whole game. So we tried our hardest in that joust. I think that the commentators were saying that that is one of the longest jousts they've seen in competitive Squadrons so far, and it really was. It almost came down to the wire, and they got a couple of kills on our bombers right at the last second. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it flipped it in their direction. But if I'm totally honest, they rolled us in that game. So what happened was we lost that joust. They then got both of our cruisers down to out of phaseable. We flipped, and then that's half of your morale gone already. And then on Yavin, you might as well not even bother going on attack. You might as well just go stay in defense. You know, when you've got half a morale bar, what's the point?
Yeah, they're gonna line up packs pretty quick there and take them out. Yeah, so that's kind of a bummer when you saw it, like kind of like the writing on the wall there. But I mean, you guys had such a great tournament. I mean, obviously, being runners up is amazing too. You guys played so good. I mean, X kind of even described Unite, I believe, as like the anime hero of the tournament. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. I had like plot armor that was 15 inches thick, right? So a lot of the time, I was speaking to Squiddy earlier from Rando SQ. I was speaking to him earlier about what it was like from the audience kind of perspective watching those games, and he just said it was basically the Knight and the Scalp show, essentially. And everyone's gonna just focus on what me and him are doing, and but they miss the perspective on what my team was doing as well. So despite me, sitting there on Sasubo, for example, and out of phasing the Star Destroyer, it wasn't me that finished it. I'll tell you that right now. I did from about 14 health down to 7. And whilst I was mid-turning, right at the end, you can watch it back, on my screen, the Star Destroyer just goes from 7 to 0 and disappears. So that was one of my teammates, I don't know who it was, one of them bringing in a piercing proton torp, or they got a weak point or something like that. So I'm not the massive anime protagonist. Everyone say, it's all about us working as a team.
You know what? You should give a shout out to everyone on the team too. I don't know if we've actually gone through. Give a shout out to everybody, all the guys on there who killed it.
Yeah. So during that particular attack, for example, on Sasubo on the ISD out of phase, Ham came in and marked it. That was one massive thing that did it. I believe it was Red Leader came and shot some torps at it, and that was me obviously working at the back doing concussions and throwing. It's like throwing paper at a brick wall, isn't it? Really, but yeah. So, and then there was Ralph trying to defend the MC, and then an Ice Cleric. I don't even know. I was so sweating at the moment. I didn't even know at the time what people were doing. So, a shout out to them, and shout out to Gold for the whole tournament, putting in the work and spending their own time, their own valuable time, learning how to improve themselves at the game. Because like Broba, for example, I know you spent a lot of time practicing dumbfires, so you get them all the time when we're in, and what more can a team leader ask for than the hard work of his team?
Yeah, it's so awesome to see you guys just have those results now, and yeah, so looking forward to you guys seeing the SCL as well, there's a chance maybe you could be qualify for the Cal Cup. We're not exactly sure if Gas is going to take their spot, so we'll find out that. What else you guys got? Do you guys do any streaming? Knight, I know you stream. Broba, what about you?
Yeah, I stream occasionally. It's been as the spring has gone on, work is picking back up. We talk about this all the time. Like, I was so glad Squadrons came out at a time when a lot of us had a lot more time at home, because otherwise I don't think I would have been able to put in the hours to even get even a fraction of the building the skills that you need to get to a place like this. So what? Oh my God, what was the question?
Twitch TV. What's your Twitch? Your Twitch
TV.
Right,
sorry. I got Broba Fett Gaming. Yeah. So it's stream time is a little bit limited. A lot of it on there is nice, wholesome Fortnite with the step kids. Some Rocket League, Apex a little bit. But by far this was the most. I got to affiliate on Twitch so fast because of the awesome Squadrons community.
Seriously,
they just so many people I know so many names from just queuing up randomly against them, and then or with them, and then I put one stream up that said oh, Broba Fett Gaming, and then I had 10 viewers the first time. It's hey, welcome to Twitch, we're all here. It was really cool.
Man, the Squadron community is so supportive. So that's awesome to see. And Knight, what was your Twitch? Where are you streaming at? What's your handle there?
So my Twitch is Knight CA6, and Again, my stream has been limited mainly because of the fact that I'm on a 4G network here. Now my actual internet is getting installed tomorrow, so I'm going to be on almost every night now. I'm going to be streaming, so it's going to be pretty good.
Awesome.
I can't wait to get back into it, and I can't wait to get rid of all that bullshit internet stuff and start to play properly. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy engaging with the community like that, and as Broba and you were saying, it's so rare to find in a game like this, a chance to meet everyone face to face and a chance to know who everyone is. You never have any chance of that in COD or in whatever kind of other game. This is what has mainly caused me to stick with Squadrons, as opposed to going off somewhere else. Is that community feel and that team and that that kind of development that you have by speaking to people. It's really endearing. It's really nice to see.
It is so true. Everybody's so friendly. It's got a much older sort of player base, but I think it leads to people like being much more genuine, I think, than you might see in a younger game. So I've loved it too. It's definitely what keeps me around. I love doing the podcast, getting to know people. I mean, mixing with all the Discord. So I really want to thank you guys for being on this podcast too. I really appreciate it, and thanks for everyone checking out the live stream here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is awesome.
So we'll see everyone next time on the Star Wars Squadron podcast.
Scanner control. 517 scanner control.